Hi y'all, so today we are talking about the evolution of signal transmission and really just how it has been conserved over all of evolution. So we're comparing signal communication in bacteria, which are single-cell organisms that have been around for a very long time, and comparing those to multicellular organisms and their pathways and how they have been around for not quite as long. So, basically we're looking at any form of communication, starts with a signal transduction. We talked about this in our other videos when we were talking about communication. So for single-cell organisms, our example today is going to be basically an environmental response, and that leads to something called quorum sensing. Then for our multicellular organisms, instead of using signals to communicate about their environment as a whole, they are coordinating activities within that bigger multicellular organism. Like humans, for example, we have to have our cells communicate so we're all on the same page within our body and our cells know what they're supposed to do. And in this example, we're going to talk about glycogen breakdown. Okay. So our first example is going to be that single-cell communication. So communication within a single-celled organism. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a symbiotic relationship. So if you remember from ecology, symbiotic relationship, this is just two organisms that are living and working together. So it's between a Vibrio fischeri, which is a type of bacteria, and a bobtail squid. So what happens is these bacteria, the Vibrio fischeri, they are bioluminescent. And that basically just means they can glow in the dark. Bobtail squid are also bioluminescent, but they're only bioluminescent because Vibrio fischeri live inside the bobtail squid. So the bobtail squid provides the bacteria with some carbohydrates to eat, and in return, the bacteria glow in the dark and actually provide camouflage for the squid at night, because as fish look up at the squid, it just looks like stars glowing in the night sky and it can blend it. The thing, though, is that these bacteria, the Vibrio fischeri, only glow in the dark when they're in a big group. They're everywhere in the ocean, all spread out, but they don't actually glow in the dark when they're just floating around in the ocean as single cells, not in a colony. So I made us a little animation about this. So if we are talking about these Vibrio fischeri, and we had one bacteria, so this is our one little bacteria, and it is sending out a signal, just a little chemical signal to everyone else, but there are no other bacteria to get the signal, then it's not going to glow and it's just going to be normal. But if we had another one, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and eventually, see right here, one bacteria got the other bacteria's signal, and that signal makes a bacteria glow. So it actually signals to produce something called luciferase, which breaks down luciferin, and that is what causes the glowing to occur. That glowing occurring, and then because that luciferin is produced, it's going to be shared with the other neighboring bacteria, and eventually all the bacteria are going to be glowing. So when they're in that close community, and those signals, these blue signals, that are called autoinducers, when it releases those autoinducers and finally binds to one bacteria and luciferase is produced, then all of these bacteria will start to glow, and that's how we get these bioluminescent bacteria. Okay, so now we're talking multicellular organisms. Not quite as beautiful as picture as my own animation, but I think it gets the point across. So we've talked about epinephrine additionally in our previous video, but this is also just a great example of how multicellular organisms are communicating with each other and signaling to one another. So the first thing that happens is the adrenal gland releases epinephrine. And if you remember, that's released in that fight or flight situation when your body is going to need some serious glucose to either fight or flight, or aka run away. So your body releases that epinephrine, and it's going to come and bind right here to this receptor. And then that, with some energy, is going to activate this G protein receptor over here, and with more energy is going to activate adenylyl cyclase, or cyclic AMP, and that activates a protein kinase, and then that activates a phosphorylate kinase, and then basically is what it all comes down to is it's going to activate a glycogen phosphorylase, which is going to come over here to the glycogen and break it all up into glucose that goes out into our blood, and we are able to use that glucose to fight or flight our scary situation. So, big picture here is one cell sent a signal to another cell, and that signal caused a reaction, which in this case was releasing glucose. So just like the bacteria, one bacterial cell released a signal received by another bacterial cell that resulted in something happening, a reaction. Whether it's bioluminescence or the production of glucose, it's pretty much the same process. And so that just helps us understand that evolutionarily speaking, pretty much all living things communicate this way. So hopefully that was helpful. If that was too quick of a description of what's happening when epinephrine is released, remember we do have that other video that gets into more detail about the pathway that's involved in the adrenaline epinephrine signal pathway. Bye guys!